Most noble greetings, everybody. Welcome to my workshop. I am thinking about vambraces at the moment, and I have a few points to make. The reason for thinking about vambraces in the first place is, one, making a Gothic arm harness for a client, and second, a post I saw on Instagram the other day, which made the point of distinguishing the term vambraces from braces. Braces, they said, are protecting the inside of the arm for an archer. So, a vambrace is then a piece of steel plate or leather strapped to usually the outside of the arm to protect it in battle armor. My thing, as you may be able to see. As I said, I have a few points to make, and I've brought some stuff to make them. Let me get the stuff. Behold the stuff, but let's start step by step. First things first, I will show you my first pair of vambraces. This is the first pair of vambraces I bought when I started LARPing a few years ago. Well, this is not a pair, obviously, it's just one, but it's one of the pair. Just believe me. It is a quite distinct design that you might recognize from some certain online manufacturer. I have mixed feelings about this. There are some good points to this, and some not so good points. To illustrate those points, I will put it on. Well, I have now put it on, and I immediately noticed some things. And you might too. If you look at it, it's much too large. There is significant gaps either side of my arm. It's actually just contacting here at the moment and on the wrist strap, which is still too loose, even on the tightest hole. Let's start with some good things. There are cutouts here that allow me to bend my arm without hurting the inside of my elbow. Nice idea. I can tell you why it's symmetrical. It's way cheaper to manufacture. This way, the manufacturer only needs to make one, the same piece, and can put two in a box and sell them as a pair because there's no left and right. Making a left one and a right one, I don't know how these are made, would need at least different patterns most likely, or even different machines, or different versions of the same machine to be very correct. But let's just make one, put two in a box, sell them as a pair. Easy. Now, this is not only too large for me in this direction, but it's also too long. Why is it too long, you might ask? It can cover my whole lower arm. Yes, but it shouldn't. Here's what I mean. Right now, this is riding on my wrist. Here you can see the bones of my wrist, and this is where it should sit, above my wrist line. This way, I can bend my wrist without any restriction, without any uncomfortable edges digging somewhere. Nice, I can fight like this, and this gap will be covered by a gauntlet. Now, if it's sitting here, or worse, here, it restricts my wrist movement, and this edge will dig into the back of my hand quite painfully, quite quickly. So there's two things in that. First of all, the length. Second, it needs to be fixed in position. I can't have it riding down and blocking my wrist when I'm fighting. And when I'm fighting, I'm usually doing motions like this, which immediately throws this over my wrist. Not good. So, to some of these problems, there are solutions. I can bend this, because it is soft steel, which is fine for LARPing. I'm not trying to make that point. Yes, it's soft steel. We just LARP. It's all right. I can bend this to make it fit to my arm more closely. Won't reduce the length, though I would need to take like an angle grinder to this, or to here, something. Tools, skills that many people do not have. So what's the solution people usually come up with? Well, let me show you. So we are sold a solution. Well, I might come off a little arrogant here. I know that I'm talking about things that I think are bad about something from my point of view, which is I know how it's done better. If you are a beginner and you do the things I'm talking about badly, don't take this personally. You know, I started there too. I did the exact same things, which is part of the reason why I can talk about them so much. I've experienced your pain. So, the solution sold to you is wearing this. They sell this as a gambeson. It is not a gambeson. A gambeson would be knee length and padded with layers of fabric, not with cotton batting inside. Now, why is this not a solution? Let me put on the vambrace again. There we go. I have now put the vambrace over, and you can hopefully see some problems. The sleeve of this gambeson is, of course, quite wide because it needs to be one size fits all, even if it's just clothing sizes like S, M, L, and so on. This fits me quite well, but the sleeve is wide, and this causes it to bunch up here, which the tighter I do this strap will put more pressure in a single point, which is uncomfortable, of course. Now, this does somewhat fix the width problem because it fills the gap with padding. This does not, however, fix the problem of it riding down over my wrist over time. You can't see it because it is covered, but this edge is again sitting right on my wrist. And if I do some more sword-like motions, fight, keep moving, whatever, it slides down even more, and for some reason out to the side too. It just isn't fixed quite well to my arm. Better than nothing, but not quite ideal. And of course, it doesn't fix the length, and now there's some padding here and padding here that effectively increases the length of this thing because the padding bunches up next to it. And I just can't get it to sit right because now it's pushed forward over my wrist when I bend my elbow. You see what I mean. And it does not matter how tight you do this. I've had people sit on my arm, pull the straps as hard as they could. Within 5 minutes of fighting, this thing is on my wrist because it just doesn't work anatomically. So how would I propose to do it? Well, let's not take my proposition, but let's look at how people did it when they actually needed to wear the equipment to fight for life or death. Equipment that needed to work all of the time, every time. I cannot let this go unsaid. This behemoth of a vambrace, which could quite well be a shin guard for a person slightly smaller than me, is, well, my arm can fit in here almost twice. Insane. This is still one size fits all. If you buy online, look at the measurements. They should be at least somewhat close to you because I don't know who this was made for. Incredible. Probably made to be worn with even thicker padding. One thing this does well, however, is as you can see, it's not symmetrical. This is a left one and there is a right one to it, and this gives ideal coverage around the elbow joint. Not bad. So this shape in general is actually how it should be. It's just way too huge for anybody to wear. This is the vambrace I'm currently working on. As you can see, it's very slim in comparison. It's anatomically shaped, which looks amazing, I think, when steel follows the contours of the human body. Of course, it has some nice fluting and everything. The sides are not rolled because they aren't on historical armor. I've rolled this edge and this edge and also this edge, but differently than on the mass manufactured stuff. On the mass manufactured stuff, this edge is bent, is bent inwards and then raised out, which is done with machines and is probably the quickest and cheapest way to do it. This is made over the edge of an anvil and it's folded upwards. So you can actually see the edge of the steel plate here, which makes it so that an incoming blow catches here quite effectively, and this is why this edge exists. The same goes for this edge, only in the direction downwards, so it can't slide into the gauntlet, and here into the elbow, respectively. So the client is a little larger than me, as you can see, but the length of our forearms, at least, are quite similar. I'm talking about the length of our forearms. Obviously, I have measurements of them. I have multiple measurements of just their lower arm to get this to fit well. Ideally, I would take a plaster cast or just measure and then try and error it in person until it fits absolutely perfectly. This is quite close though. And I found it to be most comfortable for customers to, at least for arm armor, to do it with measurements and then maybe one fitting session, and that should be it. So there's no straps on here, as you can see. Well, there's one missing. You can see I've drilled the hole here already. There will be a strap around the wrist, but that does not hold this thing to the arm. What holds it is this. This just makes it so it won't flap away. This is what holds it. This weirdly shaped piece of leather is made to interact with the elbow and rear brace, which is the upper arm. So the whole arm harness works as a unit, as you can see with this one. This is all one piece. Well, it's three pieces obviously, but it's worn as one piece with just a strap on the elbow, a strap on the lower arm. But how is it held up? Well, not by doing the straps as tight as you can. It will slide down all of the time. The way it is attached is by arming points. Pieces of string, just like this one, leather in this case. And then it is affixed to the sleeve of the garment below. The garment below, people, is not padded. An arming doublet is not padded because the closer the material is to the body, the better. I don't need any millimeter of excess material to cover the body because any millimeter more would be heavier. Also, when we talk about joints, the further the material is from the point of the joint, the quicker it will start to impede me, especially if there's padding inside which bunches up and causes the joint to lock up before my anatomical lock-up point, let's just call it. Which is, I think, the main reason for the misconception that armor makes you immobile. Because there is padding worn underneath that shouldn't be worn underneath with many armors out there. That out of the way. I have one more piece. This piece you might have seen before in the video where I talk about my armor. This is my current left arm. As you can see, again, it is made to be worn completely solid. This is a closed arm harness, which means the insides of my arm are covered too. I will now weirdly put this on without tying it here because obviously my sweater doesn't have arming points. So this is what that looks like. As you can see, the insides of my arms are covered, which makes this, as I've said, a full arm harness in comparison to a half arm harness or open arm harness versus closed arm harness. Now, here you can see this leather tab is where the arming points are fed through and then tied to hold this to the sleeve permanently, and this is what stops it from sliding down my arm. There's nothing else bearing the weight of this. The straps are just to hold it to my arm, not to pull the weight. And in this case, of course, the straps also hold the plates shut. You can see the cutout for the elbow joint, which is admittedly large on these ones, but this makes it so that I can bend my arm without any plate digging in. And as you can see, my wrist is free to move. There is some wiggle room here, as you can see on the inside, my wrist here, especially because my arming doublet I use for LARP does have some thickness to it. Not much, just a little, but this is where that gap comes from. Also, of course, there needs to be a little air gap here because this joint works by the bones rotating and they need space to rotate. So this is what a vambrace looks like in context. Not worn on its own because it really can't be properly. There are a few ways you can make it work. I will talk about those next. But here, feast your eyes upon some hopefully well-made armor. And let me show you again how this is held together. You can see an arming point, a string of leather here, which holds this together like that. So this is the leather tabs you saw on the other piece as well. The arming point is fed through those leather tabs on the vambrace and on the rear brace, and then through the elbow cup, which sits on the outside. Makes for quite a neat and mobile joint. There is, of course, a version that is articulated just like a knee would be. So articulation of this kind. This is a knee joint. This is quite large for the elbow, but of course, that's a way to protect the elbow too, which is seen more often in Italian and, let's just say, cavalry-centric harnesses, because, of course, this is much more robust when it comes to singular hard impacts, like from an opposing lance. This, however, provides a lot more flexibility. As you can see when I'm not wearing it, these are just pieces flopping against each other. This is also, of course, way easier to clean because I can just untie this and clean the parts individually. And of course, this also gives modularity. I could, for example, take off the vambrace and just wear the rear brace and the elbow. There are very few sources showing armor worn like this, admittedly not many. So, I'm LARPing and I want to wear just a vambrace. How do I make it work? My suggestion would be, first of all, form-fitting, of course. I'm an armor smith, of course I need to be on the it needs to be form-fitting kind of train. If it's form-fitting, especially around this area, it can work a little like on the calf, where the muscle itself provides some thickness and then a lower point or a thinner point further up where a strap can rest against. Then also, as you've noticed, I've taken off my wristwatch. It's over there somewhere. If the lower strap, the wrist strap, is attached just right, it can work like a wristwatch. If you're wearing a wristwatch daily, you know that this also won't slide down onto your wrist and hinder the mobility, which would be really annoying. You can do it usually just so tight that it doesn't slide over, but it also does not impede your movement in the wrist. If you want to go ahead, you could try at home to squeeze your lower arm directly above the wrist as hard as you can, and you notice how this blocks it from turning. You wouldn't want that, so the strap needs to be just right. If you have no smith near you or don't have the money to afford some custom-made pieces, why not try your hand at modifying them? Let's get back to this. How would I go about making off-the-rack armor wearable or better? I know that steel work is quite a hurdle to take for many people. It takes specialized tools like hammers, angle grinders, some anvil-shaped object, quite some knowledge too, and experience doesn't hurt either, if you don't want to throw these out immediately. But something many LARPers, cosplayers, etc. get into is leather work, and there is leather to be worked here. When you buy these, there are usually split leather straps, the cheapest they can anyhow get that won't break immediately. And they are held in usually by 3 or 4 rivets. Those can be taken out with a battery drill. Just estimate what size the rivet is, should be around 4, maybe 5 millimeters, and drill them out from the inside. You could also file or grind it out. Just get the rivet out, you will be left with 3 holes. Now you make new straps that actually fit you, maybe look a little nicer, are feeling a little nicer. And while you're at it, you could change the position of the holes to more closely match the key points on your lower arm. What are those key points? Well, first of all, you can see a little tan line here, where I usually wear my wrist watch, and this is exactly the first key point. The very slimmest part right above your wrist. This is where the lower strap should go, and then it's not so pronounced with my lower arms. If you train more, you'll see this more. This has a shape not unlike the calf, because it's anatomically quite similar. So there is a wide point here, and the second strap would need to sit right above that wide point. Now, do notice, of course, that this wider point shifts around when I move my wrist, because those muscles are what move the wrist. But if you put your strap here, admittedly quite close to the inside of the elbow, so you have to figure out how it's precisely positioned for you, then this muscle will hold it up. And together with this should make a quite firm fit of it all. What to wear underneath? I would wear no padding, because as I've said, the thinner the better. It should of course not be worn on skin, and if you just wear your standard shirt you use for LARP, cosplay, whatever, underneath it, it will first of all be black immediately and be rubbed through very quickly. You need some protection from chafing, pinching, etc. So something made of a slightly thicker fabric would be useful. Now this is still too large for you. Bending this is not so hard. You can take the backrest of a wooden chair and bend it over that. You can, if your hands are strong enough, just bend it like this, or you could clamp it in a vise and bend it. So you just need to get these edges closer together with brute force. Shortening it is a little bit of a different beast. One easy solution with these, for example, might probably be just to cut them at some point where you deem it right for your size. So maybe a line like this. You need to figure that out. Then you will be left with a sharp edge. This needs to be at least filed round, so there's nothing to cut you. Ideally, you roll the edge. Rolling the edge I will show in a different video. It's not too hard. You generally just need a block of wood will probably do, and a hammer, and that's all. So keep your eyes open for how to roll edges. Or just Google online, frankly, I won't be the first person to do it. So you can get those to fit. You can get those to be nice, you can customize them, maybe do the straps in a different color while you're at it, get some nicer buckles on there. You can get a lot out of off-the-rack armor if you know what steps to put in them. If this is a thing you would like to see more about, leave a comment, tell me if you would like it and what piece you would like to see modded, and I will maybe make some videos about how to customize off-the-rack armor to fit you better. So, my points about vambraces. This was, of course, a bit rambly because my thoughts on this are a bit rambly, and I could go on for hours about how your arming doublet should fit and how you make an arming doublet and what fabrics it was made of historically, what it could be made of today to use as stand-ins maybe for fabrics that are too expensive. a lot to cover. I can always keep on talking about armor. So I will have some discipline now, end this video here. Again, if there's some topics you'd like to see covered, leave a comment. I will probably cover them because, as you've noticed, I can't stop myself from speaking. Anyways, have a great day, night, week, weekend, whenever you see this. Cheers, have a good one.